Yo! What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, host of Set Point, bringing you another episode of Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Before I get on into the intros, I just have to say, huge shout out to Larry B for creating that intro. That was absolutely amazing. Amazing intro. It's the new intro and outro for Set Point. Absolutely amazing job by Larry. He even told me himself that it took him about an hour to get this perfect. And honestly, perfect, well-detailed, well-orientated, well-created. Bravo, Larry B. Thank you very much, Larry B. I know he's doing a show right now, doing Dirt and Diamonds with Freddie B. No relationship, but amazing intro that he created. But I appreciate the new anthem for Set Point. I hope you all like it. If you all like it, definitely thank Larry B. And yeah, I just had to throw that out there. But welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday, wherever you're listening from. Either way, you've made your way into episode 356 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let's begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without iSports Radio to provide the platform for me to go live on X and on YouTube. Please do follow iSports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X and Instagram. Also subscribe to iSports Radio on YouTube. We definitely would appreciate it. We are definitely trying to reach that 500 subscriber threshold. And I promise you all there will be more volleyball content for those that are wondering. So definitely do follow. That's going to be something I'm going to be implementing more. So if you follow on iSports Radio's YouTube, you will see more highlights and more everything. Also, make sure to check out our website, iSportsRadio.com, for all of your latest sports news. Our hopeful blog that will be back. Our page dedicated to each show, such as Set Point, and so much more. For the last 12 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. So without any further delay, let's get on into what our sponsor is all about. I'll see you all in a bit.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
For the last 10 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at iSports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iSportsRadio.com. At iSportsRadio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows. Definitely check out our sponsor, and definitely check out everything that is IE Sports Radio. We would appreciate your support. And if you are supporting, you are awesome. And if not, tell a friend about IE Sports Radio. Tell a friend about Set Point, because we have all sorts of shows dedicated to all major sports around the country. I mean, you've got shin pads and shenanigans with the World Cup happening. You have Fast Break with Davidson Crooks and Dentarius Locke. You have the Neutral Zone. You have Dirt and Diamonds. You'll have 3 and Out coming back. That's our football show, and so much more. We appreciate IE Sports Radio for I appreciate IE Sports Radio for everything, and for those that haven't supported IE Sports Radio yet, definitely do so. The way you can follow me on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, @set_point_IE, and on TikTok, @set_point_IE. You can also follow me personally as well, @Teran Rodriguez 1. You can also follow Setpoint on Instagram, @set_point_IESR, and also Setpoint is on Facebook as well, so that's tethered to my Instagram account, FYI. So, all right. So with all that being said, let's get on into the volleyball action. So where we left off was week 2 of the women's VNL. So week 2 was an interesting week for the U.S. women's national team, as they had a slightly different roster. I mean, the only big differences were Jordan Poulter and Dana Retke, but other than that, nothing too groundbreaking. But let us go on let's see how they did this past week. So looking at last week, it was a rather fascinating week, because this week was kind of I feel I shouldn't be too disappointed if they win, but I shouldn't be too down if they lose. So looking at the first match, the first match for the U.S. was actually the first match of the women's VNL altogether. So they took on the Dominican Republic, and you didn't miss much with this matchup. The U.S. swept Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic was not good by any means. They came in with one of 2 teams with 0 wins. So the U.S. dusted them off fairly easily. And honestly, there was nothing to be overly concerned about. I knew if the U.S. lost this one, then we needed to be a little bit concerned about what was going to happen. But I digress. But if you didn't see this match, like for example, if you were asleep, don't worry, you didn't miss too much. You just missed I wouldn't say a beatdown, but you just missed the U.S. doing their thing. So leading the way for the U.S. in the kill department was Jordan Thompson, who had 13 kills, and then we also had Logan Eggleston with 10 kills. Overall, it was just a good, clean, solid night. Nothing too out of the ordinary, nothing stressful, and by any means. As the U.S. had a kill efficiency of 350 and then a kill percentage of 450. So I thought that was pretty cool, if you ask me. So that was the first match. I was not overly surprised that the U.S. swept. I think now that the U.S. has most of their top dogs, I think that they're not going to be having too many problems going forward. So there you go. So the next match, the U.S. actually had this next match was the day after, and they took on Czechia. I was going to say Czechoslovakia, but I think their name is now officially Czechia. But if we all remember last year, the U.S. was 0-2 going into this matchup, and they did not have most of their top players. But this time around, the U.S. was not losing by any means. By the way, they were playing in the Philippines, in case anyone was wondering. But as for this match, the U.S. just demolished Czechia. I mean, look, Czechia came in as one of the more interesting teams. The Czechia actually came in, I think they were like 3-1 going into 3-1 going into the week, and this was a little concerning. But honestly, that could have been a trap game just because the U.S. was going to play Italy after on the next in their next match. But honestly, there was nothing to be overly concerned about if you were the U.S. As once again, Jordan Thompson led the way with 14 kills. You also got 9 kills from Logan Eggleston. Jordan Poulter is back to setting the offense quite effectively. You also got 12 kills from Avery Skinner to go along with 7 digs. 12 digs to go along with 7 kills for Avery Skinner. So overall, a pretty clean match, if you ask me. I was actually a little surprised the U.S. I was more surprised the U.S. held Czechia to less than 20 points in every set. But honestly, I think Czechia kind of benefited in that first week due to the favorability of their schedule. But honestly, the U.S. will take the win. I mean, like I said, every win matters because, well, the schedule only gets tougher from here on out. And their next matchup was against Italy. But before they got to face Italy, they did have a bye day. So they had a day to rest and prepare and to get ready for Italy, which was nice. And here's the thing about Italy. Italy didn't have most of their players. They're still without most of their star players. They didn't have Paula Egonu. Interestingly enough, in this match, they didn't really play Ekaterina Antropova for the most part. So I was a little confused on why they weren't playing her, but I'm not Italy. Italy's not us, but I digress. But the thing that really surprised me was that the U.S. swept Italy, and I actually, unfortunately, could not see this match because I think it was at 1 a.m. my time. So if you were on the West Coast and you stayed up for this match, I have more power to you. But I could not stay up for the love of me, especially since I had to go to work the next day. But I digress. And I know everyone's going to say, oh, it's Italy's B team or it's Italy's young players. Nah. Well, I get it. But honestly, the U.S. needs all the wins that it can get when it comes to the women's VNL. When it comes to the VNL, they need all the wins that they can get because every win is so precious going forward. And you're about to see that when I go over the rest of the VNL. But Stephanie Samity led the way with 12 kills, while Maddie Cubic Banks added 10 kills. Overall, another good match for the U.S. as Sage Kaina Torres was the one that set the offense for the most part. She had 35 assists. You also had 11 digs from Morgan Hance, as well as 11 digs from Banks. So a great win for the U.S. At the time, Italy was ranked number 1 in the world. Now, obviously, they weren't number 1 in the standings just because they got handed their first loss to Brazil. But honestly, it's still a very good win for the U.S. This win could have been helpful a couple years ago in the Olympics. But honestly, the U.S. will take it. The U.S. will take this win regardless. I just don't want this win for it to go straight to the U.S.'s heads and for it to go to everyone's head. Because we all know that the U.S., if they face Italy, that it's going to be a little bit more of a rough ride, especially when they get all their top players back and once all their star players are in their corrective spots. But the last match for the U.S. in week 2 of the women's VNL was against Serbia. Now, this was the sneaky, concerning match. Now, going into this match, I was thinking to myself, well, the U.S. is coming off of a win, but that could kind of be a good thing and a bad thing because, as I've said in weeks past and in other episodes of Set Point, Serbia is well known for giving the U.S. fits in the women's VNL. Serbia didn't really come in with the best record when it came to the women's VNL. They came in with a record of 2-5. They came with a record of 2-5, and this could have easily been a trap game or easily been a match where the U.S. could have said, oh, we just beat Italy. We're the best in the world. Or to quote Jamal Adams, I'm the best in the nation. But I digress. But the U.S. actually was able to have a leveled head as they took down Serbia in 4 sets, which I thought was good. I mean, Serbia really came to play in the second set, and that was kind of my area of concern. I was like, why is Serbia playing a little bit better than I anticipated? But the U.S. reestablished themselves, and I was very impressed by them, as Avery Skinner led the way with 16 kills. They got 8 kills from Asia O'Neal. Dana Retke, I should also mention that Dana Retke kind of got her feet wet and her well, not feet wet, but her feet back into the action, which I thought was very nice as well. I mean, her numbers weren't eye-popping, but they were still efficient and effective. Logan Eggleston had 16 kills. They got 10 kills from Jordan Thompson. And in case you're not putting 2 and 2 together, the U.S. did go undefeated this week. So they went 4-0 in the VNL this week. And I will also just say they only lost 1 set, which I thought was pretty impressive as well. But here's the thing. They're nowhere near out of the woods. They're nowhere near out of the woods in terms of winning this whole thing. I mean, they're 7-1, which I thought was great, but as I said on X, they could have easily been 8-0. If they don't drop that Canada match, they definitely could be 8-0. But I'll give credit where credit's due to Canada. They earned that win. My only qualm is that, honestly, the U.S. left a lot of meat on the bone when it came to sets 1 and 3 against Canada. But we can't do anything about that now. All the U.S. can do is just move on and just roll with the punches. So overall, a great week for the U.S. as they really came to play. And again, I get it. The Italy match kind of has a little bit of an asterisk just because Italy didn't really play their A team. But it is what it is. The U.S. didn't really have their A team last week when they lost to Canada and when they played the likes of France. But hey, the U.S. will take what they can get. All right, but that is that for the USA portion of the women's VNL. And I hit the wrong thing. So now let's go over the rest of the VNL. So the second matchup of the VNL, this took place on Tuesday, June 16th. You had Canada versus Netherlands. Now, going into this matchup, I was a little skeptical of this matchup just because both these teams were pretty much neck and neck when it came to the world rankings. But Canada was able to pull off the win as they took down Netherlands in 4. This was kind of going to be a barometer of where Canada was at in terms of the VNL, because in week 1 they were pretty impressive, but honestly they really need to make a bit of a move just because they're kind of on that borderline of making the VNL finals and missing the VNL finals. But it is what it is. But it was a good win for Canada, taking down Netherlands in 4. That's a very solid win right there, especially since they dropped that first set quite meh-like. But hey, you take the wins. You take what you can get in terms of wins. Next up, you had Italy taking down Czechia in 4. Now, Italy needed a little bit of a bounce back win, and even though Czechia kind of challenged them, Italy knew they couldn't afford to lose 2 straight, and they knew that Czechia also could have benefited from a win just because they were in that top 4 echelon of the VNL standing. So Italy picking up a win over Czechia and bouncing back after suffering that brutal 5-set heartbreaker to Brazil was a very nice way to come back. Next up, you had China outlasting Germany in 5. Now, Germany was oh so close to pulling off the upset, but unfortunately, China kind of caught their second wind in set 4, and then they just rolled in set 5. So, honestly, China was just on a tear when it came to this matchup. I mean, the first set, Germany, I got to give credit to Germany. They kind of came to play in that first set, winning it in close fashion. But China just was so resilient and so scrappy. So, I thought that was a very nice win for China. And the fact that Germany did earn a point was pretty darn good. Next up, you had Poland taking out Bulgaria in straight sets. Okay, this wasn't really surprising. Poland is one of the better teams in the world. Oh, look, I'll give credit to Bulgaria for challenging Poland in sets 2 and 3, but let's be honest with ourselves, Poland wasn't losing this match. Next up, you had Japan taking on Serbia, which was technically on June 17th. So the first 2 matches of the VNL were basically late Tuesday if you're on West Coast time or Hawaiian time. But most of these matches took place on June 17th in terms of the US. So this next matchup was rather interesting. Serbia-Japan. Serbia was kind of in one of those weird situations. They needed to win in order to help boost their standings because they were in no man's land, while Japan was undefeated. And here's the interesting part. Serbia was up 2-1 in the match. the fourth set was just wild. Serbia had quite a bit of chances to put the match away in 4, but they allowed Japan to take that fourth set 32-30, and then Japan used that as a momentum builder to take that fifth set 15-7. Unreal match. God, Serbia is just catching all sorts of wrong breaks when it comes to the VNL. Well, Japan just outlasted them, and man, that was kind of a thriller right there. Next up, you had Brazil sweeping France. Okay, this one's also not too surprising. Brazil, look, France gave them a battle in set 1, but Brazil is just Brazil. Brazil was just on a tear, and even though they did have that big win over Italy, they were not going to get a big hit over that. Next up, you had Ukraine taking down Thailand in 5, and you got to feel bad for Thailand. Thailand was one of the 3 host teams for week 2 of the women's VNL, and the fact that Ukraine beat them, ooh, that's got to sting. Especially since you got to remember, this is Ukraine's first year in the women's VNL. So, unfortunately for Thailand, that kind of left a sour taste in the Thailand fans' mouth. But it is what it is sometimes. And honestly, nothing against both these teams, but this was kind of pegged as a little bit of a toilet bowl in terms of like rankings. All right, so next up to close off the Wednesday matches, you had Turkey versus Belgium. All right, this is kind of an interesting match right here. So the thing about Turkey is that they came in, they were limping. So they were missing quite a bit of some of their top players. So a few of their players were out because of not being with the national team and because of injury. Well, they lost a few other players to injury. I think they had like 5 players that were missing time. I think one of the top players for Turkey was out for 4 to 6 weeks. The only top player that you need to know when it comes to Turkey from week 2 is Melissa Vargas. She pretty much was the catalyst for this team. And here's the thing for Belgium. They were kind of in that situation where they weren't bad enough to miss the VNL finals, but they still had a chance. And Belgium still has Britt Herbots, who had 1,300 points in terms of the VNL, and she was so close to. I said she was close to being the all-time points leader in terms of Belgium volleyball, but she was also close to being the top-ranked player in terms of points in terms of the VNL. But as for the Turkey-Belgium match, Turkey kind of swept Belgium, which that's kind of the Turkey we all expected. Now imagine if Turkey had most of their roster in terms of like their A team. But the fact that Melissa Vargas just is a catalyst is just unbelievable. All right, now for June 18th matches, aka Thursday, if you're in the U.S. So we already talked about USA Czechia. Next up, we had Poland taking down Ukraine in 4. I'll give it up to Ukraine. They came alive in set 3, and they challenged Poland in set 4, but Poland just has way too much experience. I think that's kind of the problem with Ukraine. They just don't have the experience when it comes to the VNL, which really is a bummer, but it is what it is, and that sometimes you have to learn on the fly. And this is kind of like a baptism by fire. So sadly, that's just the case right there when it comes to Ukraine. But at least they got better in terms of they didn't really gain too much in terms of the world ranking points, but still. Now, the next matchup was a little bit more exciting. It was Italy taking down Serbia in 5, which Italy just rolled past Serbia in the first 2 sets. But then Serbia, whatever the case was, they woke up and they held nothing back for the most part. The 5th set was the closest of the 5 sets, and Italy was able to take down Serbia in that 5th set, 15-12. I'll give it up to Serbia. This is, like I said, Serbia has been catching so many bad breaks when it comes to the women's VNL. Like, they are much better than what their record indicates. Like, this week alone was just brutal for them. They had to play the likes of Japan, Italy, the United States. I think they only had 1 gimme game this week, which we're about to get into in a little bit. But yeah, Italy found a way to win, and even though they needed 5, it's still 3 points. Speaking of finding ways to win, Brazil needed 5 to take down Belgium, and man, that was also another wild matchup. And Belgium is another case of their record is better. The record isn't indicative of what team they really are. They're a good team. And like I said, Britt Herbots is a fantastic player. Only problem is that Britt Herbots can't carry this team by herself. Brazil has so much firepower. They've got Ana Cristina, they've got Julia Bergman, and so on and so forth. Brazil is just stacked all across the board. So, and that fifth set could have gone either way. And same to be said for set 4. Well, I guess all the sets except for set 1 could have gone either way. But I got to give it up to Belgium. They really threw everything in the kitchen sink at Brazil, but Brazil just found a way to win. Now you got something a little bit more exciting. You got Thailand taking down Bulgaria. And remember what I said last week. If there was ever a match that Thailand needed to win its first match in the VNL, this was the match. And Thailand was able to do so. And man, did they pick a right time to win this match? As this match was actually an upset, as Thailand was actually ranked 25th in the world rankings, while Bulgaria was 22. So Thailand pulling off the sweep in front of its fans. Their fans were definitely happy when it came to this, as Thailand earned its first win of the women's VNL. So good job to them. And then closing off the Thursday matches, you had Turkey and France. Turkey swept France, which wasn't ultimately surprising. I mean, Turkey has a Melissa Vargas. France has some good players, but honestly, Turkey just still has the firepower and the coaching staff. So there you go. All right, moving on to Friday's matches. You had Dominican Republic taking on Serbia. Now, remember what I said that Serbia was catching all sorts of bad breaks? Well, this is kind of the good break that it finally got. Serbia took down Dominican Republic in straight sets. Man, Serbia needed this one in the worst way. And you got to feel bad for Serbia. Hopefully, for their sake, their remaining schedule in week 3 is a little bit favorable, but they're going to need a lot to go their way. So, yeah. Next up, you had Netherlands taking down Ukraine in straight sets. This isn't ultimately surprising. I mean, I'll be honest, Netherlands is more experienced. And you're going to hear me say this a lot when it comes to Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't have the experience. Ukraine's going to have to learn on the fly. Netherlands, I saw Netherlands 2 years ago. Maybe it's not the same team, but Netherlands is still Netherlands, and they still have their coaching staff and everything and more when it comes to their roster. So there you go. I don't really want to speak too much on that, just because Netherlands knows that if a loss to Ukraine pretty much could have derailed their VNL finals hopes, but still a good win. Next up, you had Japan taking on Czechia in straight sets. Again, Czechia had the most brutal schedule in week 2 when it came to the VNL. They played Japan, they played Italy, they played the United States. It didn't get any better as they lost to Japan in straight sets, which Japan knew they needed to win this one. So it was a good win for Japan, and Japan was just rolling still. Then you had China sweeping France, which, again, not surprising. I don't really need to speak too much on this matchup just because China to me was on their A game. China was not losing by any means. I mean, China is the host team for the VNL finals on the men's and women's side. But China knows they can improve their seeding in terms of the VNL finals, so they don't have to draw the likes of Italy or Brazil or heck, even the United States. But more on that later. Next matchup you had was Canada sweeping Bulgaria, not sweeping. Canada beating Bulgaria in 4. I will say Bulgaria did make a nice little late push to win that second set. Unfortunately, they couldn't do the same in sets 3 and 4. And oh man, those are sets Bulgaria would like to have back. But Canada was able to eke out a win, get the full 3 points. And they're still very much alive when it comes to the VNL finals. And they could be running into a familiar foe if they play their cards right. So we shall see. And then next up you had was Belgium versus Germany. Now, this was the rivalry between these two teams. I kind of said that France was Belgium's rival, but honestly, Germany is Belgium's rival. And that should be indicative of the colors of the flag for both of these teams. But Germany was able to sweep Belgium. I was a little surprised that Belgium lost this one, but Germany was able to take down Belgium in straight sets, which I guess when it comes to rivalry matches, you just never know what you're going to get. And Germany just said, hey, we're going to give you a loss. So a good win for Germany. Next up, you had Poland. Okay, now we jump on into the second to last day of the VNL. So Saturday's matches. So you had Poland taking out Netherlands in 4, which I thought was a very good matchup. So Netherlands, in my opinion, they really showed what team they could really be in set number 3. The first 2 sets were not indicative of Netherlands. Poland, that was just more indicative of Poland being such a really good team. Now, the 4th set, Netherlands had their chances, but unfortunately, Poland, being the talented team that they were able to win that 4th set 25-23 and eventually clinch the match. All right, so they had that right there. Now, here comes the shocker of all shockers for the most part. You had Dominican Republic taking down Japan in 4 sets. So going into that matchup, Dominican Republic had 0 wins. They were the only team remaining without a win in the women's VNL. Meanwhile, Japan was one of 2 teams that were undefeated. And Dominican Republic shocked the world. They took down Japan. And for more context of how, Dominican Republic was ranked 12th in terms of the world rankings, but the VNL standings just had them just low on the totem pole. But it just goes to show that Dominican Republic was not as bad as their record was indicative of. I think Dominican Republic was just running into too many teams that were better than it. But Dominican Republic finally had their big match, and they were able to put the match away, winning it in 4. They responded really well after dropping the first set by quite a good chunk. So I think Dominican Republic, they earned that win big time. In Japan, they were handed their first loss of the women's VNL, which meant the last undefeated team remaining was Brazil, which took down China in 4. So Brazil, they might be the team to beat in terms of the women's VNL. I could say that for Italy as well, but for me, Brazil just has so much talent, and I feel this might be some are even saying that Brazil is in the mentality of win the whole thing or bust, or championship or bust, which I don't really think that's entirely true. Unless there's no world championship this year, Brazil shouldn't be too overly concerned when it comes to the women's VNL. Because someone did actually respond to me, which kind of says that the VNL isn't ultimately too concerning, and that the more big concern is the World Championship and the Olympics. But I digress. But as for Brazil, beating China was not an easy feat. China brought everything and then some. Losing that first set was what kind of derailed China's momentum. They didn't really rediscover their momentum until set 3, but then Brazil, just being the good team that they were, they took back in set 4 and they just ran with it. So Brazil was 7-0, a very impressive run for them, but not as impressive as Thailand beating Canada. Oh my gosh. God, you talk about a stunner. Thailand picking up a win over Canada. Now, why couldn't the U.S. just do this? Why couldn't the U.S. find a way to beat Canada? I'm sorry, but Thailand came in with 1 win, and Canada knew a win over Thailand could have gone a long way. But now a loss to Thailand really hurts and sets back Canada. This was an upset because Canada was in the top 10 in terms of the world, while Thailand was basically number 20 in terms of the world rankings. But yeah, Thailand, what a win for them. And all their fans were just so jubilant after seeing their team upset Canada. That was a big win. Speaking of big wins, here's another big win. So Germany, oh my goodness. So this was an interesting matchup. So Germany wound up winning the first 2 sets against Turkey, and I hate to say this, but Turkey volleyball Twitter was just not happy. They were just frustrated, angry. It's like, we are just playing down. It's like every time we host, we always lose a big time match like this. And I get it. Turkey was missing some of their top players, and some of their top players were out due to injury. But Turkey did something that I thought they should have done. Battle back. And they did so in set 3. They did so in set 4. The 5th set, Turkey, it was tight in that 5th set. I think it was like 11-11. And then Turkey kind of found some breathing room at 14-12. Germany dodged 1 match point from Turkey, but eventually Turkey was able to take that 5th set 15-13. So a great win for Turkey. Only 2 points, but hey, it's still a win. And that win can go a long way because Like I said, Turkey is super resilient. As long as they have Melissa Vargas, this team is not going to be losing by any means. And then next up, you had Bulgaria taking down Ukraine in a 5-set barn burner. Look, I don't want to say this was a toilet bowl, but let's be honest, it kind of was. Okay, this wasn't really a toilet bowl. This was actually an avoid relegation bowl, because in case you all are wondering, there is no Challenge Cup this year. So if you finished as the worst team in the VNL, you get relegated. And then the team that's ranked the highest that wasn't in the VNL, they get promoted to the VNL. So yeah, there is relegation in volleyball. As Larry B pops in the chat room, he says, T-Rod, hey, this is the man that gave me the new intro. So you all better thank him. So thank you again, Larry B, for the new intro. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you had a great show with Dirt and Diamonds. But yeah, Bulgaria, Ukraine was kind of okay. I won't say it was a toilet bowl. It was you got to avoid relegation bowl. So there you go. Larry B says, "Love the new intro." Yes, yes. I appreciate you, Larry B. Words cannot express how appreciative I was for that new intro. So thank you very much, Larry. But yeah. Bulgaria, Ukraine was nothing more than who wants to avoid relegation. So Bulgaria pulling off that win was huge, just because they're more than likely not going to get relegated unless they just don't show up. Anyway, so that was that for Saturday's matches. Sunday's matches, you had Czechia taking down Dominican Republic in a reverse sweep. Oh man, Czechia needed this one in the worst way, because going into that matchup, Czechia was actually 3-4. They knew if they were 3-5 going into week number 3, they knew their hopes of making the VNL finals would have probably gone down the toilet. And Czechia needed a reverse sweep. Set 4, oh my God, set 4 was wild. They wound up winning it 31-29. Dominican Republic had their chances, but unfortunately they just could not pull it off. And for those wondering, this was technically an upset in terms of world rankings, as Czechia was ranked number 13 while Dominican Republic was number 12. And just when we thought Dominican Republic finally caught a break, they unfortunately just wound up getting a reverse sweep, which really sucks. But hey, Czechia is still in the hunt for making the VNL finals. Y'all got to remember that. Speaking of 5-set, this was okay. I will just say, Sunday was the day of 5-set matches in the women's VNL, as you also had Belgium taking down France in 5. So this one was kind of, I would say this was a toilet bowl, but Belgium, look, there was some significance when it came to Belgium beating France. Belgium's still alive in terms of making the VNL finals. And also, Britt Herbots is now the points leader in terms of the women's VNL. I guess all time. I mean, she's probably the leader in terms of Belgium's points in terms of women's volleyball, in terms of the national team. But Belgium beating France was big. So with Belgium winning, they're still alive in terms of making the VNL finals. But for France, I think they're pretty much eliminated. They're pretty much close to being eliminated. I mean, they would need a lot to go their way. I just don't see how they're not going to make the VNL finals, because they only have one win, which is just stinky cheese. But yeah, France, and what's worse for France is that going into week 3, they're now the worst team in terms of the VNL. So if they don't get out of that 18th spot in terms of the VNL standings, they get relegated. So France is on the borderline of getting relegated. So that's something y'all need to know. But here's another an amazing 5-set match. You had Canada taking down Poland in 5. Now that was a very, 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 very fun match. And Canada's the most confusing team of all time. So one week they're beating the U.S. One week they're losing to the Dominican Republic. Now another match they're beating Poland. Like, who is this Canada team? And do you want to know what's the crazy part about Canada? They're actually in the top 8. So if the VNL ended today, Canada would actually be number 7 in terms of the VNL finals. And I'll get into who they would face a little bit later. But man, Poland picked a bad day to lose a 5-setter. And this was a big time upset. Just because Poland, I wouldn't say their hopes of becoming a top seed are derailed, but I will just say this loss doesn't really do them any favors, just because they were on the coattails of Brazil and the United States in terms of the standings. But unfortunately, this loss now puts them one game back of Brazil and the United States, so it's unfortunate for them. Speaking of now, while we did have a lot of amazing matches that went 5 on Sunday, this was one of the few matches that went 3. And that was the match of the week, which was Italy-Japan, which Italy wound up sweeping Japan. So I'm a little confused at what Italy did. So Italy got swept. So y'all got to remember, Italy lost in straight sets to the United States. And I get it. Italy is still isn't at 100%, but I don't want to hear the excuses. But they just swept Japan. So am I missing something when it comes to Japan? Am I missing something when it comes to Italy? But yeah, anyway, Italy, that was a nice win for them. Nice bounce back win, because they could have easily just moped and sulked and said, oh, we lost. How could we lose? But if you're Japan, you got to be kicking yourself, because you went from 6-0 to now ending week 2 by lose. Oh, okay, they beat Czechia, but still. Oh, I'm sorry, no. They went from 6-0 to losing 2 straight to end off week 2. So losing to Italy is one thing. I mean, Italy is still Italy. They still have a lot of talent. But losing to Dominican Republic, I still can't believe how that happened, dude. But yeah, Japan, y'all got some work to do, because that loss doesn't really do them a whole lot of favors. But you're about to see that in a little bit. Now, this was kind of the big upset to end all upsets. You had Germany pulling off the 5-set thriller over Brazil. So Germany took the first 2 sets in very close fashion by scores of 26-24 and 28-26. And I was like, all right, where have I seen this before? Brazil's down 0-2. We already know they're going to reverse sweep. And Brazil wound up crushing Germany in the 3rd set, 25-15, and they crushed them in set 4, 25-19. And then 5th set was just all over the place. Germany had match point. Brazil tied it up at 14-14. But then Germany managed to rattle off 2 straight points to eventually take the match 16-14 in set 5. So that was Brazil's first loss of the women's VNL, which was huge right there for one team. But for Germany, here's the thing. Just look, they're kind of in the same boat as Belgium. They're still alive in terms of making the VNL finals, but a lot needs to happen for them to make the VNL finals. So, man, Brazil's gonna want to. If there's ever a match that Brazil would like to have back, it's probably this one. But yeah, Brazil wound up dropping that one. I was very surprised. I was like, oh my god. So a massive win right there for Germany. I mean, regardless, it's still an impressive win. Then you had Netherlands taking down Thailand in straight sets. Okay, this isn't ultimately surprising. I mean, Thailand, they were ranked number 20 going into this match, while Netherlands was number 8. So the win actually does Netherlands a lot of favors, because Netherlands is 4-4 going into week number 3, and they're actually ranked number 9 in the VNL standings. So if the VNL season ended today, or if the VNL ended today, Netherlands would be the first one out. So yeah. And my boy Brian Francione pops in the chat room. He says, "What a new intro!" Hey, thank you, Brian. And I actually do gotta say, now that Brian Francione pops in the chat room, I actually do have something I do need to give. I have to say to Brian, happy birthday to you, Brian Francione. Happy birthday, Brian. I hope you've had an amazing day today. And yeah, I really do appreciate all the support that you give to Set Point. I really do appreciate you being my, I wouldn't say partner, but my co-lead. I'm messing up here, but I appreciate you being my colleague when it comes to iSports Radio. Your support does not go unnoticed when it comes to Set Point. So thank you, Brian. It really means a lot. And happy birthday, Brian Francione. It really means a lot. So thank you, Brian, and happy birthday to you. Had to give him a birthday shout out just because he's my iSports Radio colleague and it's his birthday today. So yeah, I appreciate the him saying it. What a new intro. Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you, Brian. But anyway, back to the women's VNL. So moving on. So Netherlands is now number 9. They're the first one out in terms of the VNL finals. But hopefully for their sake, their schedule can't get any more difficult than it was in week 1. Week 1 was the grind. Week 3 should not be as bad. If it's bad, then I think we got to look at FIVB and wonder if they have it out for Netherlands. Anyway, now for the final match of the VNL for week 2. Turkey versus China. Now, this was honorable mention for match of the week, and this one lived up to the hype, unlike Italy versus Japan. Okay, I shouldn't say that. I mean, it was still a good match. It's just that Italy needed a bounce back. But Turkey, they were ranked number 3 in the world going into this, while China was ranked number 7. Turkey wound up winning in 5, and you got to remember, Turkey had so many injuries, and they were still missing quite a bit of players. And Turkey almost kind of let China come back in that 5th set. You got to remember that China was actually down 13-8. It should have been 14-7, but China wound up winning a challenge. And Turkey kind of almost let China come back. Eventually, China closed the gap to within 2, but Turkey was able to shut the door on them. So Turkey going 4-0 is huge. And you got to remember, they're missing a good chunk of their players due to injury and due to unavailability, but they still have Melissa Vargas. As long as they have Melissa Vargas, she is going to be player of the week this week. As long as they have her, Turkey is still a threat to win the women's VNL. Now, if they get their full roster back and if they get healthy, then Turkey could be more than a dark horse. For now, I think Turkey is a dark horse until they get to be fully healthy. But you don't want to sleep on Turkey. If there's one team you never, ever, ever want to sleep on, it's Turkey. All right, but that is that right there. And that's kind of the reason why this banner here says Turkey rises above injury problems, goes 4-0 in week 2, which I thought was very, very significant. Other than the U.S., okay, I shouldn't say that. I think Turkey, of all the teams in the VNL, deserves to be 4-0. With how much they went through in terms of seeing certain players, certain key players getting hurt, they deserve to be 4-0. They fought tooth and nail. They defended home court, and they wound up going 4-0, and they put themselves in a position where they not only can make the VNL finals, but heck, they could still be the number 1 seed. But their schedule, I'm certain, is going to be it's probably going to get tougher as the final week of the VNL approaches. But looking at the rankings, well, okay, not rankings in terms of like world rankings, but in terms of like the standings, you have the United States in first place. So the United States and Brazil are both 7-1, and they both have 20 points. The big thing is that the U.S. has a better set ratio. Their set ratio is 3.5, while Brazil's set ratio is 2.3. So in other words, USA has the advantage of Brazil. But you know who plays each other in week 3? Brazil and the United States. But then you've got Italy, Poland, Japan, Turkey, Canada, and China all chilling at 6-2. The big difference is that Italy has 18 points, which puts them at 3rd. Poland has 17 points, that puts them at 4th. Japan has 16 points, that puts them at 5th. Turkey has 15 points, Turkey and Canada both have 15 points, but Turkey has the better set ratio, as they have a set ratio of 1.461, while Canada's set ratio is 1.357. So Canada is 7th, while Turkey is 6th, and China is chilling out in 8th at looks like they're 5-1. They're 5-1. Are we sure about this? You're gonna have to forgive me. The volleyball world's 5s also look like 6s, which is not convenient if you ask me. But still, but still, it's still pretty solid. That's pretty much your top 8 right there. So that's your top 8 right there, and I think you have a lot. You have a lot to look forward to in week number 3. So, like I said, Netherlands and Czechia. Netherlands is on the outside looking in terms of the top 8. So Netherlands is 9th with a 4-4 record. They have 12 points. Czechia is 10th. They have a record of 4-4, about 11 points. Germany is 3-5, but they have 11 points. Belgium is 3-5, but they have only 8 points. Serbia is 13th. They have a 2-6 record, but they have 10 points. Thailand is 2-6. They have 9 points. They're 14th. Ukraine is 2-6. They only have 6 points. Bulgaria is 2-6. They only have 5 points. Dominican Republic is 1-7. They have 5 points. And France is bringing up the rear. They are 1-7 and only have 4 points. So like I said, so week 3 is going to matter a lot. It's going to be teams getting relegated, teams eventually getting promoted, teams making the finals. A lot's going to be happening in terms of week 3 of the women's VNL. But that's not until the following week. So it's going to be on 4th of July weekend, which I think is pretty cool if you ask me. But overall, the women's VNL is, I wouldn't say it's on its way to closing out, but we're already in week 2. Week 2 is already in the books, ladies and gentlemen. And man, it feels like yesterday that the VNL started, but it is what it is sometimes. But that'll do it for the women's VNL. I can't wait for week 3. I think it's going to be very, 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 very fun and competitive. And we'll see what the U.S. wants to do. So my thoughts on the U.S. being 7-1 and first place in the VNL standings. It's great, but they can't be satisfied just because, yeah, it's cool that they're still undefeated. And I think it's really awesome that they're undefeated. But you look at their final 4 matches. Thailand is probably going to be their gimme game. That's probably going to be the match where the U.S. clinches a spot in the VNL finals. But then after that, it gets super brutal. You've got Poland, then you got Turkey, and their final matchup, it's against Brazil. That's food for thought right there. That could be the de facto matchup on who gets the top seed and who probably gets to face the 7th seed. So looking at Brazil's schedule, they've got Japan, which that could. Okay, so Japan, they pretty much got U.S. Okay, U.S.'s and Brazil's schedule aren't necessarily the same. So Brazil has Japan, which Japan is hosting, by the way. So Brazil has to go all the way to Osaka, Japan. And thankfully for the U.S., they don't get to play Japan this week. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but Brazil has to face Japan, and they're coming off of that loss to Germany. So they got to wipe that loss away and let it go. And then they've got Poland, which is another big matchup right there. Poland is also vying for a top 2, maybe number 1 seed of the VNL finals. Then Thailand, that's going to probably be the Brazil's gimme game, just like the U.S. And then for the U.S., USA Brazil, that could be the de facto matchup on who is the number 1 seed and who's the number 2 seed. Or it could be who decides who gets the number 3 seed. But overall, I think that matchup is probably the de facto matchup in any way, shape, and form. So, that's something to definitely note if you're the U.S. and the Brazil. Because both Brazil and the U.S. have really tough matches. It all depends on who comes to play, though. Well, I mean, Brazil also, even though they're coming off of a loss, you also got to remember that Japan is coming off of 2 straight losses. So, there you go. Anyway, but that'll do it for the USA women's volleyball and women's VNL portion of the show. We're going to take ourselves a quick commercial break. When we come back, we've got the men's VNL to discuss, as well as the U.S. men's national team for this week. And then we got a little AVP action, and then a little bit of some 2028 commits. And then I'll let you go for the week. So keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on IA Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, esports radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at iSports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, and definitely check out the IE Sports Radio website. Also, do what my boy David Crooks is saying right here. Hit that like button. It helps boost the algorithm when it comes to IE Sports Radio and when it comes to Set Point. So definitely do hit the like button and subscribe to IE Sports Radio if you haven't already. All right, welcome back to the second half of this week's episode of Set Point. So now let's get back into the volleyball action. So let's actually talk a little bit of some USA men's volleyball. So, all right, so this was announced today, and the U.S. men's national team for week 2 of the men's VNL has been announced. Thank goodness, because I was wondering if it wasn't going to be happening. I'm like, but thankfully, after my work shift, it was announced. So, all right, your week 2 U.S. men's volleyball roster for the VNL. So you got Matt Anderson, outside hitter. You got Jeff Jendrick, middle blocker. TJ DeFalco. Yes, TJ DeFalco is back, ladies and gentlemen. You got Gabby Garcia. You got Kyle D'Agostino, Micah Christensen, Taylor Averill, Micah Ma, Jake Haynes, Cole Hartke, Ethan Champlin, Eric Shoji, Merrick McHenry, Matt Knigge, and Jordan Ewart. So, few things to note. So, unfortunately, no Mason Briggs. Mason Briggs has gone bye-bye, and now Kyle D'Agostino and Eric Shoji have taken the reins from him, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Matt Knigge is now on the roster, now on the main roster, which I think is really cool. Micah Christensen is also on the main roster, so now the U.S. still has 2 setters. So now Rowan is no longer on the main roster, which is kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. I mean, Rowan did a great job in week 1. I guess Christensen was kind of just needed a little bit of a week off to get his sea legs back. But I'm sure we'll see Andrew Rowan in the near future. But Cole Hartkey is still on the roster, which I think is really cool if you ask me. Matt Knigge being on the roster, I think it's really awesome just because, well, for starters, Matt Knigge, for those that don't know Matt Knigge's story, he came from a Division III school named Vassar. That alone is really awesome. Coming from a Division III school is awesome, but coming from a Division III school that's up east is really, really awesome. And I had the privilege of covering Matt Knigge back when the NVA was still around. But now he's doing it his own thing, and he's doing it big. So great to see him back in action. Also great to see TJ DeFalco and Gabby Garcia back in action. So not last week, but the previous week, where the U.S. had the Stars versus Stripes scrimmage, TJ DeFalco was playing in that scrimmage. He played in the first couple sets, and then after I think a little bit going into set 3, he needed to get some treatment on something, and he didn't play the rest of the Stars and Stripes scrimmage. But it's so great that there's no major injury. Like, the last thing the U.S. needs is a major injury to their roster. So good to see TJ DeFalco back on the main roster, as well as Gabby Garcia. So the world is the U.S.'s oyster because they come into this week 3-1, and they're definitely in a great position. They've got a lot of young talent on their team. I think this team definitely has what it takes to take down some of the best. So looking at the schedule for this week for the U.S. men's national team, so they're heading down to Orleans, France for their matches. So on Wednesday, they play Cuba at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Then on Thursday, they have Iran at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Then Saturday, they've got Japan at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And then Sunday, they've got Serbia at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So looking at the standings, so actually, no, I shouldn't say that. The last thing anyone would think is the U.S. is world beaters. I think what doesn't matter is the standings in terms of like the VNL standings. What matters the most is the world standings. That's what matters the most. The world standings. The world. If you get that reference, then you're awesome. But looking at the U.S.'s opponents, the U.S. is ranked number 4 in the world going into this week. So I don't think any opponent of theirs is ranked ahead of them. I mean, Iran is ranked number 17 in the world. Cuba is ranked number 16 in the world. Trying to find where did I say Japan. Japan is the one that kind of scares me. Japan's number 5 in the world going into this week, and then Serbia is number 9 in the world going to this week. So while there is no opponent that is ranked higher than the U.S. this week, Japan and Serbia can really give the U.S. some problems. Japan can get you, because you also got to remember that Japan is one of 2 undefeated teams, the other being Brazil. Meanwhile, for the U.S., they are on the coattails of Japan and Brazil. And Serbia's right on the coattails of the U.S. So I really think Serbia and Japan could be the teams that give the U.S. fits this week. But Cuba and Iran should possibly be gimme wins. Okay, maybe not gimme wins, but they should be winnable matches. Like, if you compare Cuba and Iran to Serbia and Japan, there's no comparison. All right, but yeah, looking at the U.S., if there's ever a clunker match for this week for the U.S., if there's ever kind of a letdown match that the U.S. could have, it's against Japan, because Japan has some darn good players, and they play some scrappy defense. So there you go. All right, and something else to note for the U.S. men's national team, the U.S. is actually going to be having a second Stars versus Stripes scrimmage, which is going to be held at Tustin High this Friday, and your boy has gotten the green light to attend that match. So you already know I'm going to be bringing you all the coverage. I cannot wait to bring you all the coverage. I think it's going to be a very, another fun match, another fun intra-squad scrimmage. And I can't wait to bring you all the post-game content. I can't wait to bring you all the highlights. And just like I did in the first intra-squad scrimmage, I am going to record all the highlights. I'm not going to record any service errors. I'm not going to record any hitting errors or any errors in general. Oh, if anything, I'll probably just like edit those out or chop them up or something of that sort. So it seemed like I got a lot of positive reception when it came to the highlights and from the first Stars and Stripes scrimmage. So since you all liked it that much, I will give you all a second video, a second big time video of the Stars Stripes intra squad scrimmage. So that's something to look forward to this week. But now let's jump on into the men's VNL for this week. So this week is where we separate the men from the boys. And I don't mean that in terms of puns. So this week, to start the men's VNL, you got China versus Turkey. So unlike the women's side, this isn't as exciting as that match. But looking at Turkey, something to note for Turkey is that they're actually 2-2. While that isn't really the best, and they're not anywhere near the top 8, it still actually is an encouraging sign because Turkey isn't really the most known for men's volleyball. But this week is what we really got to see out of Turkey. This is where Turkey has got to really prove to everyone that Turkey is for real. And if there's ever a week for them to prove themselves, it's this week. Just because even though China is complete, when they're complete doo-doo, China will still be in the men's VNL finals, which means they're automatically qualified for the playoffs or the finals. So China could be 1-7, but they'd still make the VNL finals. So for China, this is pretty much just target practice for them to try to improve and to maybe even pull off an upset, but we shall see. Next up, you got 10th ranked Bulgaria versus first ranked Italy. All right, this one's another fun matchup. This one I think can go either way. I think Bulgaria actually has a better chance of winning this. So looking at Bulgaria in the standings, we all know where Italy stands. They're 3-1. Bulgaria is 2-2. I feel they left quite a bit of meat on the bone from week 1, but we all got to be 100% honest. Week 1 is kind of it's not indicative of where your team really is. Like you could be 3-1 and you could be on the path of derailment, or you could be 1-3 or 2-2 and you could be on the path of success. I think Bulgaria is definitely a threat to taking down Italy. I think Italy needs to be very careful when it comes to this matchup, because as long as Bulgaria has the Nikolov brothers and Moni and Alex, I think they definitely have a shot. All right, next matchup, you got Serbia versus Japan. So 9th ranked Serbia taking on 5th ranked Japan. I talked about this already. This could actually be quite significant. So Japan is they technically are they're number 2 in the VNL standings, but Serbia is not too far off from them. They're actually ranked 5th in the VNL standings. This could be a massive win right there for Serbia. I mean, Japan has to be really careful with this matchup just because I think Japan is going to really get challenged when it comes to this matchup. So don't be surprised if Serbia actually manages to pull off the win. But Japan's really got to be – this is where we get to really see Japan get tested this week. All right, next matchup, you got 13th ranked Argentina taking on 8th ranked Germany. All right, so this one is another fascinating matchup. So Argentina is 0-4, and they only have 1 point to their name. But don't tell them that. You all need to remember that Argentina caught so many bad breaks when it came to week 1 of the men's VNL. However, they do face Germany, which is 2-2. If Germany wants to really prove themselves, they got to beat Argentina. Argentina is coming in with not too much to lose. I think Argentina definitely has a good roster. It's just that, unfortunately, they've lost so many close sets and they've caught so many bad breaks. I think this Argentina team needs a win in the worst way. So I really think that Argentina, if there's ever a week for them to win in, it's this one. But Germany is definitely beatable. It's just that it all depends on which Argentina team we get and if Argentina can close out. But we shall see. Next up, you got 15th ranked Ukraine taking on 3rd ranked Brazil. on paper, this looks like a mismatch, but you also got to look at the standings. Ukraine is 2-2, while Brazil is 4-0. My thing is, Ukraine isn't anywhere near out of the VNL finals. The VNL finals are still on the table for this young Ukraine team. But Brazil is a really tough challenge. Like, Brazil's 4-0. They're coming off of an emotional win over Argentina. But this Ukraine team is so young and feisty and hungry to pull off a big win. And Ukraine has come so close to pulling off big wins. They almost did so against Poland, but they just couldn't pull the trigger. So Ukraine could very easily be 3-1 in the VNL, but unfortunately that's not the case. So if Brazil, to my point, if Brazil thinks that they're going to walk in and they're going to get an easy dub, they better think again, because Ukraine is out to get them. They can get you. And then I already talked USA-Cuba. I mean, if USA loses to Cuba, then we need to have a talk about Karj. Because Cuba is the 18th ranked team in terms of the standings. USA it doesn't get more winnable than that if you're the US. So there you go. Next up, you got 2nd ranked Poland taking on 14th ranked Belgium. All right, so Poland kind of had themselves a little bit of a rough week. They went 2-2, but like I said, week 1 is not indicative of your team. Like, you can afford to go 2-2, maybe 1-3, and you could still make the big dance. But for Poland, to their point, Belgium's kind of in that same boat. The problem is that Belgium has 5 points while Poland has 7. So one of these teams could find themselves in a world of hurt on whoever loses. To Poland's point, I think for them, they can't afford any more losses at this point. I mean, until they get all their players back, if they haven't already, they got to start winning more of their matches. I think Poland is still a threat to winning this whole thing. I think for Poland, they're the last one in. So you look at the top 8 standings, Poland is number 7, but you also got to remember that China, even though they have a worse record than Ukraine, China automatically qualifies for the VNL finals, which means Ukraine is the first one out and not Bulgaria. That said, Poland against Belgium could actually be a very sneaky good matchup, and it can actually matter in terms of the VNL standings and possibly the VNL finals. So you never know. So you have that matchup right there. Next matchup, poopy. Next matchup, you got 7th ranked France versus 17th ranked Iran. So one look at the records, and some could probably say this is a toilet bowl. No. I think for France, this is kind of their wake-up call. So you all got to remember, France pulled off an amazing win over Italy to start week 1 of the men's VNL. But then after that, they lost 3 straight matches, which is not convenient for them. So France has some work to do. Thankfully for France, they still have some time. I mean, heck, they could even run the table and they could wind up making the VNL finals, because it has been done in terms of being 1-3 and making the VNL finals. It's just that for France, their seeding is probably going to be not as good as most people would like it to be. And then for Iran, they're still a young team. I can't imagine France loses this one. If France loses this matchup, then I think we got to have a talk about France. But for Iran, they're still young and a little bit of on the young side. I think France with the experience should win, but you never know. And then lastly, to close off the first day of the men's VNL, you got 6th ranked Slovenia taking on 11th ranked Canada. All right, so Slovenia, Canada. Canada is 1-3. Man, this team could have probably been at least 2-2. While Slovenia is 3-1. All right, if there's ever a match that Canada needs to win, it probably would be this one. If there's ever a week that Canada needs to come up big in, they got to come up big this week. For Slovenia, they know how crowded it is in terms of the VNL standings, in terms of the top 7. And yes, I'm saying top 7 because, remember, China automatically gets that VNL, one of the VNL final spots. So you have to make the top 7 in terms of making the VNL finals. Otherwise, you're gone. But yeah, looking at Slovenia, they're 3-1, but they're the worst 3-1 team. They had to play in 3 5-set matches. Thankfully for their sake, they wound up winning all 3 of those 5-set matches. But their last match was, I think it was against Serbia, and they wound up losing that matchup. Either way, Slovenia, or no, I'm sorry, it wasn't against Serbia. It was against Japan, where Slovenia lost in 4. So Slovenia, if they don't want their fans to, have their heart rate or their blood pressure spiked up, Slovenia might not want to put them on the edge of their seat. But then again, Slovenia is a I think can be a good 5-set team. I mean, it all depends on which Canada team shows up. Will we get the Canada team that laid an egg and got reverse swept against the U.S., or are we going to get the Canada team? Or, I mean, looking at Canada, which Canada team are we going to get? The Canada team that beat France, or the Canada team that lost all their matches in 5? So, interestingly enough, not Bulgaria. Slovenia won all their matches, all their 5-set matches in week 1. Well, Canada lost all their 5-set matches in week 1. So maybe Slovenia is onto something. Maybe Slovenia should try to push it to 5, because Canada is not a good 5-set match team. So maybe Slovenia could be onto something, but we'll see. But anyway, for Canada and for Slovenia, I think it could be a good matchup. I just think that for Slovenia, a win can go a long way. But for Canada, they're kind of in must-win mode. They got to win now, otherwise they'll be in deep doo-doo going forward. But we'll see. I mean, maybe Canada's saving the best for last. Maybe this week is the week they get Skylar Varga, because I don't think Skylar Varga was part of that week 1 team. But looking at Canada's remaining matches, they got Slovenia, Ukraine, Bulgaria, and Brazil. So yeah, that's their entire week this week. Ukraine's winnable, Slovenia is a tough one, Bulgaria is tough, and Brazil, yeah, this is going to be a tough week for Canada. So they got to pull off at least one upset. And that's barring, calling an upset over Bulgaria is kind of calling it loosely, because they're kind of close with one another, but we'll see. But yeah, that's actually going to do it for the first day of the VNL matches. So the second day, you've got China, Belgium. Don't really have much to talk about when it comes to this matchup. I mean, this could probably be a good win for Belgium. I mean, Belgium can take all the wins that they can get, but they got to play practically flawless, especially since they have to make the top 7. Then you got Ukraine, Italy. It's inexperienced versus experienced. If Ukraine wins this matchup, then they deserve to be in the VNL finals. And then you got Iran, USA. I already talked about that. Poland, Turkey. All right, this is kind of where we get to see if Turkey is really the real deal. If Turkey beats Poland, then that might be the realest of all real deals. But if Poland wins, then it's going to be tough sledding for Turkey going forward. Then you got France, Cuba. No, this isn't a toilet bowl, but this should be a fairly winnable matchup for France. If they lose to Cuba, I don't know what to say. And you got Slovenia, Bulgaria. I feel that is kind of a rivalry matchup, but it's more of this could determine who makes the VNL finals matchup. I mean, Slovenia and Bulgaria are both right there with one another. My thing is, for Bulgaria, they're kind of going to need to have to step it up, just because they're the second one out in terms of the VNL finals. But we shall see which Bulgaria team we get. I think Bulgaria is still a threat as long as they have the Nikolov brothers. Then on Thursday, you got China, Argentina. If Argentina loses this, if there's ever a match Argentina needs to win, it's this one. By the way, the 3 host teams for this week's VNL on the men's side are Poland, Slovenia, and France. All right, then after China, Argentina, you've got Canada, Ukraine. Like I said, you can't. This is probably the most winnable matchup for Canada, but to their point, they can't afford to take Ukraine lightly because Ukraine is young and hungry. And then after Canada, Ukraine, you've got Iran, Japan. Again, this is the battle of inexperienced versus experienced. If Iran beats Japan, then they'll have had to play their best matchup. Then you got the rivalry matchup between Belgium and Germany. This is going to be a fun matchup right here. Is what I would say if both their team. Okay, maybe their records could be better. Maybe Germany and Belgium could win their first match. But this could probably make or break on. This could probably be an elimination match on who gets eliminated in the VNL, who fails to make the VNL finals. So there you go. And then you probably got the match of the week right here happening in Slovenia. Italy versus Brazil. Now, this matchup is going to be a fun matchup. This one, I think, can be absolute cinema. But we shall see. Then you got Serbia, Cuba. Serbia, Cuba? Yeah, this one, I think, can be a little one. I mean, unless Cuba was missing most of its top players in week 1, I think Serbia should win this one. But we shall see. Then you got Bulgaria, Canada. Could we see Moni Nikolov and Alex Nikolov taking on Skylar Varga? That still remains to be seen. A matter of fact, I actually do want to see. I do want to see if Canada has my boy Skylar Varga on that roster. If they do, then they may have a chance. Yeah, Skylar Varga is listed on this roster. Maybe he wasn't on the week 1 roster, but still, it's so great to see Skylar Varga doing his thing. And he just signed with his pro team, which I actually kind of forgot. I know that news isn't really relevant ultimately, but Skylar Varga is going pro. So after Bulgaria, Canada, which can actually be a make or break matchup in terms of making the VNL finals, you got USA, Japan. That's probably going to be a very exciting matchup. Then Poland, Germany. This is also another make or break matchup in terms of making the VNL finals, but we shall see. France, Serbia is also a sneaky good matchup. I mean, if France plays their A team, if France gets their A team, or they get the France that beat Italy, Serbia could actually lose, but Serbia's still playing some darn good Vibes. Then you got Turkey, Argentina. I mean, Turkey needs all the wins that it can get. If Turkey can go 3-1 this week, they definitely have a fair shot of making the VNL finals going into week 3. Then you got Slovenia, Brazil. That's another good matchup right there. That's going to be a very, very, very fun matchup, and that can actually feed families. And then the last day of the VNL week 2 men's side, you got China, Germany. Germany's got to win that one. Then Bulgaria, Ukraine. Bulgaria should have more experience than Ukraine, but Ukraine is hungry. They're hungry for some big-time wins. Then you got Iran, Cuba. Oh, boy. This one I think is I think this one's, and I hate to say this about Cuba and Iran, this one I think is the toilet bowl of the week. I'm sorry, but it's inexperienced versus a team that is one of 2 teams that has 0 wins. The only difference is that I think I'm a little bit more high on Argentina just because Argentina, I think they're still a good team. It's just that they've caught awful breaks. So there you go. Then you got Belgium, Turkey. Again, Turkey, if they can beat Belgium, like I said, if Turkey can go 3-1 this week or 4-0, then they're in a good spot of making the VNL finals. Then Canada, Brazil, that's going to be a very fun matchup, but it's going to be tough for Canada. France, Japan is also going to be a very good matchup. I mean, if we get the France that beat Italy, Japan might be in trouble. But if we get the France that laid an egg after they beat Italy, then Japan can roll their way to victory. Then you got Poland, Argentina. I feel this is kind of a rivalry matchup. I mean, again, Argentina is... Their 0-4 record going into this week is so misguiding. I think Argentina is a much better team than that 0-4 record appears to be. But you never know when it comes to this. Then obviously Serbia, USA is going to be a fun matchup. And then Slovenia, Italy. That one's going to be another good matchup. And that could make or break any either team's chances of making the VNL finals or getting an ideal playoff spot. But we shall see. I know I had to skim through most of that, but that's pretty much all your matchups to watch for in terms of week 2 of the men's VNL. So now let's jump on over to the AVP League. So for the AVP League, we now jump to Las Vegas, aka Sin City, where the AVP League will have week 4. So this is actually the last week before the intermission, or the I guess the checkpoint, the halfway point of the AVP League. So the first matchup we had of the AVP League in Las Vegas was the Los Angeles Launch and the Palm Beach Passion. So on the men's side, the Launch consisted of Hagen Smith and Logan Weber, while on the men's side, the Palm Beach Passion consisted of Trevor Crabb and Phil Dahlhauser. In the end, Dahlhauser and Crabb took down Weber and Smith 15-10 and 15-11. And the women actually followed suit as Savvy Corey, or Savvy Simo, and Brandy Wilkerson of the Passion took on Maddie Anderson and Elena Chacon. So you're probably wondering, where is Melissa Humana Paredes? Well, she actually suffered. Remember that hip injury that she suffered against the Dallas Dream the previous week? Well, she is actually out for this week. So the AVP League brought in Savvy Simo, or Savvy Corey, to basically take the place of Melissa Humana Paredes. Hopefully it won't be a long-term injury for Melissa, and hopefully she'll be back on the court. But it looks like Savvy Corey, and I got to remember that's not Savvy Simo anymore. It's now Savvy Corey. Savvy Corey and Brandy Wilkerson are now meshing well with one another. I think that first match where they played with one another, they took on Megan Kraft and Kelly Cheng. And those two have team chemistry with one another. Corey and Wilkerson did not have the team chemistry with one another. So in the end, Corey and Wilkerson took down Chacon and Anderson in a 3-set barn burner, 12-15, 15-11, and 17-15. Then next matchup you had was the Dallas Dream versus the New York Nitro. So on the men's side, you had Paul Ottman and Miles Partain of the Dream taking on Kame Schulk and James Shaw of the Nitro. And Partain and Lottman finally was able to break through and get their first win on the men's side, beating the duo of Schulk and Shaw 15-11, 14-16, and 15-11. Then on the women's side, you had Kylie DeBerg and Betsy Flint of the Dream taking on Tony Rodriguez and Molly Shaw of the Nitro. And the Nitro took down the Dream, a.k.a. Shaw, and Rodriguez took down Flint and DeBerg 15-7 and 15-13. Then for day 2, you had the Los Angeles Launch taking on the Dallas Dream. So, like I said, the men's side consisted of Hagen Smith and Logan Weber taking on Paul Ottman and Miles Partain. And Partain and Lottman took down Weber and Smith in a 3-set barn burner, 10-15, 17-15, and 15-13. And then on the women's side, you had Maddie Anderson and Elena Chacon of the Launch taking on Betsy Flint and Kylie DeBerg of the Dream. And Flint and DeBerg took down Chacon and Anderson of the Launch in 3 sets, 15-13, 8-15, and 17-15. Next up, you had the Palm Beach Passion taking on the New York Nitro. So on the men's side, you had Trevor Crabb and Phil Dahlhauser taking on Kame Schulk and James Shaw. But in the end, Crabb and Dahlhauser outlasted Schulk and Shaw 15-12, 10-15, and 15-8. And then closing off the AVP League in week 4, you had the women's side with Savvy Corey and Brandy Wilkerson taking on Tony Rodriguez and Molly Shaw. And Corey and Wilkerson took down Shaw and Rodriguez in 3 sets, 16-14, 11-15, and 15-10. So my takeaway for the Palm Beach Passion is this. Savvy Corey is actually meshing well with Brandy Wilkerson. I think they just needed one match together to get the feet wet and to get the chemistry going. I mean, I think facing the likes of Kelly Cheng and Megan Kraft is kind of baptism by fire, just because Brandy Wilkerson hasn't really had a partner outside of Melissa Humana Paredes in a hot minute. So the fact that Savvy Corey was able to make a big impact with Wilkerson this week was huge. So the Palm Beach Passion went 4-0 this week. The Dallas Dream went 3-1. New York Nitro went 1-3. And the LA Launch went 0-4. So the league standings are all over the place, but technically your league leader is the Palm Beach Passion with a record of 9-3. They've played 12 matches. The New York Nitro is 2-10. They have played 12 matches, but they only have 2 wins to show for it. Teams like the San Diego Smash and the Austin Aces have only played 4 matches, which kind of does not do them any justice. And then the Miami Mayhem and Dallas Dream are both 5-3, while the Mayhem have 15 points, the Dream have 12 points. And then the Launch and Blaze have both played 8 matches. The Launch have 11 points, while the Blaze have 9 points. But this is just league matches, league standings altogether. This is both men's and women's combined. This isn't just the men's side and the women's side. But we shall see what happens. I'll show you all the standings on the men's and women's side come the week where the AVP League goes to Long Beach. So week 5 won't be until July 11th and 12th, where the AVP League will be heading to Long Beach, which I think is pretty awesome. You already know your boy's going to be trying to go to that event and be there and not be square. Just because I never really get a chance to cover the AVP League, just because there's none near in my area, but I digress. But yeah, this is probably going to be the most golden opportune time for me to cover the AVP League and to cover AVP in general. Otherwise, I'm going to have to bank on trying to cover the Manhattan Beach Open, which is probably going to be tough just because, well, for starters, the Manhattan Beach Open is quite far, if you ask me. But overall, that's pretty much your AVP League in a nutshell. When is the Manhattan? The Manhattan Beach Open is on the 14th and the 16th, but I can maybe make that. I mean, it's going to be tough for me. I mean, Manhattan Beach is just so fluff and far away, but we shall see. I really want to go down there at least for one day. I've never been to Manhattan. I mean, I've been to the city Manhattan Beach, but I've never been to Manhattan Beach Pier. And yeah, I've never been to the granddaddy of them all, and I'm a volleyball connoisseur, so we got to change that. Anyway, but that's that for the AVP. So we're going to be taking a break from the AVP for a couple of weeks. Actually, no, it's just going to be next week. So yeah, next week we'll be taking a break, and then the following week we'll be having a little bit of a preview, and then we'll be back. Not next week, but the following week we'll be back to talking some AVP for those that actually care. All right, but that is that right there in terms of the AVP League. And lastly, I do want to talk a little bit of some high school girls volleyball. So I just want to tell you all this. Nebraska, they still continue to kill it when it comes to recruiting. So Nebraska landed Shaylin Rottenberg, Jocelyn Samuels, and Megan Hodges. So Megan Hodges, of the 3, well, all 3 of them are actually ranked high in their class. But Megan Hodges is the one that really caught my eye because I've covered some of Megan Hodges' matches when she played for San Juan Hills. That right there was a massive get. And you know what's scary? Nebraska's pipeline has bled all the way into California. I mean, they obviously got Manaya Obeche from Oaks Christian, but now they got all the way to San Juan Capistrano, and they got Megan Hodges. Danny Busboom Kelly knows how to recruit, well as Jalen Reyes and Kelly Hunter and all those. And bottom line is Nebraska just has that volleyball culture. And I don't blame Megan Hodges for committing to Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska kind of does need an opposite. I mean, they still have Virginia Adriano probably going to be playing the right side. But honestly, getting Megan Hodges is just massive right there. And she does have USA volleyball experience playing on the USA U19 team, if not the U17 team. Either way, she has USA volleyball experience. She is going to be a budding star. Nebraska got a good one right there with Megan Hodges. And getting Jocelyn Samuels and Shayla Rottenberg are a big plus as well. But the big one actually goes to Texas A&M, last year's national champion, where they landed Maya Agbagu. I don't think she's related to Chiaka Agbagu, but she is actually the number 1 recruit in her class, and she has committed to Texas A&M. And here's the thing. I think we got to pump the brakes a little bit. Everyone's saying, did Texas A&M just land a national championship? Nah, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Just because Texas A&M wound up getting the number one recruit in the nation in that recruiting class does not mean they've automatically clinched a national championship. You have to play the game. This isn't freaking Madden where you can just simulate everything. You got to actually play the game. And Nebraska fans, you're going to kill me for saying this, but we all thought Nebraska was going to win. We all thought Nebraska was going to win the national championship last year once they went undefeated, but unfortunately A&M kind of had other plans. So you got to play out the season. You can't just get one or two good players and then say, oh, this team just wound up clinching a national championship. No, you got to actually you have to play the game. So please stop putting that narrative out there. And then I guess something to note for Texas is that Taimine Anyanu, if I mispronounced that, I apologize, out of Iolani, she actually committed to the University of Texas. And Texas has gotten some good recruits. Like, their class of 2027 class is really good. I mean, same can be said for Nebraska, but still. The Texas's sneak is looking really good in terms of its recruiting class. I'm really hoping as a SoCal guy, and I don't want to put all the other schools down, I'm really hoping that either USC, UCLA, Long Beach State, or anyone else in the Southern California area can actually step their game up, because I actually read an article on the top women's volleyball programs that have spent. USC and UCLA aren't even remotely close. The only team in California that actually is in that top echelon, top 12 teams, was actually Stanford. So these California teams have kind of got to up their game up. But I digress. I mean, Stanford's obviously going to be up there in talent. I just want to see like some of the SoCal teams like up their game. Like, I mean, Cal Poly's like Central California, but still, Cal Poly, they got. We got. Why isn't Cal Poly like getting some of these big time recruits? And they wound up making it to the Sweet 16. But I digress. But I shouldn't. But I guess for USC's sake, their recruiting class from this year was actually good. Their class of 2026 is superb. Getting Laylee Ostavar, Addison Cody, Millie McGee. I think this USC team should still be up there in talent. I'm sick and tired of not seeing them not have a deep run. I'm sick and tired of them not having a deep run in terms of the NCAA tournament. I mean, last year was a step in the right direction with them hosting the first two rounds, but I want to see them actually make it to the Sweet 16, because they were the only top 16 seed to fail to get out of the first two rounds. And that's no disrespect to Brad Keller, because I love me some Brad Keller and I love me some USC women's volleyball. But I want to see them out of the first two rounds. I want to see them making a deep tournament run. Just please. Anyway, SoCalism aside, Nebraska, Texas A&M, and Texas are just crushing it. There are other schools that are probably crushing it, and that was only week one of these whole players committing to certain teams in terms of like the class of 2028. I only imagine what's going to be happening in the few coming weeks, just because there's still probably a lot of other good players that have not committed. And heck, there are probably some class of 2027 players that have not committed that have all eyes on them. But we shall see what happens. But I just wanted to touch base on that little bit of that high school girls volleyball thing. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you, Larry B, for popping in. I appreciate you. And thank you once again for the intro. It means a lot. For everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself an amazing week. Stay cool, because it's starting to get hot. I will see you all on Friday at Tustin High School for the Stars versus Stripes scrimmage. Have yourself an amazing week. Take care. And I will see you this Friday at Tustin. Peace.